Good evening. It is Monday, January 6, 2025. Welcome to episode 93. And after having a little bit of a reprieve last week, it almost seems like we forgot how to ride a bike. We're a little bit, a minute or two late. And
I was behind schedule, huh?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how to do this thing again. I don't even know what I'm doing right now. But yeah, Mondays for us, when we come on these live streams, is always pretty busy. Along with all the other things that we've got going on and other irons in the fire, we try to get that done in a manner that's not going to have us, too outside of our normal routine by the time the live stream's over. So she's running around all day like a chicken with her head cut off, and I'm running around trying to get all my chores done.
Literally.
So that we can get all this stuff done prior to the live stream. But this is literally like the first time we've actually had a chance to sit down and have a little conversation all day. We've been going in different directions, right?
Mm-hmm. I think we're going different directions just about every day.
Yeah, it seems that way. But yeah, we've got a few people in the house, and it's good to see you guys. I hope you guys had a wonderful, Christmas and New Year. Good evening, Bill Zegley, London, and who else is in the house? Skane's girl. How are you guys doing? It's good to see you. And New Year's for us was very uneventful. Of course, we're not too lively.
We're an exciting couple.
We're not exciting at all. Wait a minute here. I am having a hard time, guys, with this screen. Okay, there we go. I'm back. Start clicking buttons, and then the next thing you know, I got little windows over here, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. So
it's the old man syndrome.
It's like we're out of practice. So like I said, I got to get back in the groove here. But New Year's was cool, right? We were in bed by probably 8 o'clock, and I started to hear a little bit of gunfire about that time. And then I dozed off sometime shortly thereafter. And then I woke up again probably about just before midnight. And man, they were blazing it up out there. Even before midnight, they were shooting it up. And then when, it hit at high noon there, it was like semi-automatic and automatic gunfire. And I tell you what, that's a very calming thing to hear. When you live in an area where people aren't, they're not out shooting people and, gonna harm you. If I was in the inner city, I might be a little bit concerned about what I was hearing. But I mean, it's like every year it's that way. They're shooting off cannons and fireworks and, fully auto and everything. And it's just kind of nice to be a part of that, right? Celebrating the Second Amendment and our freedoms.
Yes, it was not relaxing for a person, or not a person, but an animal in our house. Our poor dog was pacing back and forth and whining. I think she thought she was going to get shot. I don't know. She was having a really tough time with it.
Yeah. Yeah. London says that they had a little bit of gunfire out your way as well. And I would assume that, I wouldn't think that wouldn't be the case. Again, I think that there was gunfire going on in the inner cities as well, but that was on another level. So, but yeah, New Year's was nice for us, right? Yeah,
relaxing.
Mm-hmm. But anyhow, how are you doing, Rebecca? Let's hear from you. What's going on in your world? What's shaking?
Well, I'm good as usual. We've had our grandson for the weekend, or not for the weekend, but for a night. And we also, while we had him, had some lightning. And so I picked him up so he could look out the kitchen window, and his face just lit up because the sky would light up, and then he'd smile, and I'd tell him that's lightning. So I think that's probably the first time that he's seen that.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it is or not, but we did have a little weather event here. Friday it was. And the thing that's kind of interesting about that weather event for us is that, come to find out, just about, probably 7 miles due east of us, there was a tornado that was confirmed and touched down. And that is something that does not happen here too often. It's quite the weather anomaly or different kind of a phenomenon that we just are not very used to seeing. Obviously, Midwest, you see a lot more of that. Here, we don't find that kind of severe weather very often. So when something like that happens, it's kind of noteworthy. But yeah, that was just like 7 miles due east and touched down for about 0.8 of a mile. Of course, it wasn't a huge tornado, but it was pretty impressive. There was some video of it and stuff. So yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed living here in Sacramento Valley is that we get a little bit more severe thunderstorms than I was used to growing up with. And a lot of that is it's topographically influenced. Anytime you have, if you look at California, it's a valley, right? It's this basin, flat, and it's about anywhere from 30 to 40 miles wide in a lot of places. Some maybe a little bit more than 40 miles, but you've got mountain ranges on either side. And as weather comes across, it has the convergence of that topography has an impact on weather. So we do get thunderstorms here. We do get large size hail, things like that, lightning, thunder, a lot more frequently than when I grew up as a kid. So that's a little bit different, but tornadoes are not our thing, right?
Tornadoes are not our thing. I am glad that we didn't physically see it touch down like in our field or anything.
Right. Yeah. Weather phenomenon is something that really quite interests me just because of the nature of, what I did for a living. And it's kind of nice to know how weather influences fire behavior. And it's a lot of it is topographically driven. There's other factors that obviously influence it, but topography has a really large impact and footprint on what happens with the weather. So for a perfect example is what happens in the Midwest out in Tornado Valley or Tornado Alley. Did you know why that they get so many tornadoes there, Rebecca?
I do not.
Okay. Well, it's a very unique weather scenario. It doesn't really occur anywhere else in the world. And there's more tornadoes that happen in those number of states, whatever that collection is, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, the whole thing, right? There's more tornadoes that occur in that particular location, and it's all topographically influenced. And you've got basically the Gulf of Mexico, where you've got warm, moist air that's going to be coming on shore that's rising. And then you've got the influence of the Rocky Mountains and the Continental Divide, where the air that descends down, it's going to be colder and it's going to be descending. And as that air coupled with what comes down from Canada, as that air mass, you've got warm, cold meeting, and you have instability. And in that instability, you're going to have rotation. And so that's why they get these just horrific, storms that come through that particular part of the country. And it's, like I say, it's all topographically driven, but it's interesting to learn why things do what they do. And when you do, it kind of like, it's cool to me. Mm-hmm. Right. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it is, but it makes me happy that I don't live there to experience that.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it would be kind of cool to experience it from afar. Yeah. Where you could see it, but I don't want to be caught up in one.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I've often said it would be cool to actually see it as well. But last year when I was, I went down to Tennessee, and then on the way back, I was driving through a bunch of severe storms, and I wasn't having such a good time with it. It was kind of freaking me out a little bit. And, it did some damage right where I was coming through St. Louis and then Nebraska and all that. There was actually a tornado that touched down right where I drove through, that there was still shit all toppled over and semis that were still rolled over and everything. So it's pretty destructive, but I think it's like anything. If you grow up and you live in Kansas, or you're from Oklahoma or whatever, that's something that you just deal with. Like, people are probably like, oh, we don't want to live where there's the things that we deal with from the standpoint of weather anomalies, earthquakes, and, whatever else, floods and fires. But, we're used to it, right? It's just part of whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess you can't really say you're used to fires, but we're used to them occurring.
Well, we know how to
I mean,
prepare for them, and,
yeah.
and we understand that it's going to happen. I mean, at least you should if you live in an area where it's kind of frequent. But yeah, what's up, Midwest Preparedness Project in the house? Good to see you. And then London asks, how's the training going? Yeah, I am putting in some decent miles. Put in about 70 miles last week. And today was actually a rest day. I went to the gym, though, and spent about an hour or so at the gym doing a lift. And then tomorrow will be a pretty big day for me. So I've already got all my shit lined out for the most part. I'll be heading up north to go to the mountains, and I'll probably do about a 5 to 6 hour run tomorrow, putting in about 6,000 feet of climb with about 25 miles or so. That's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, I'm getting close to that race. So I'm doing a lot more specificity to my training, and it's going well, man. I've been stacking bricks for a long time. So I'm not really feeling like I'm doing too much too fast. I'm feeling like I'm fit. So everything's going great, man. I'm pretty pumped on it.
So I run 5 or 6 miles and he runs 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah. Well, you know, you've been doing it for a while. It just kind of, you know what to do, right? It's like anything. Let's see here. That's interesting. It says you're still not getting notices for when we do these lives. So it's a crapshoot to get in on time. Yeah, we typically try to do it on Monday. Sometimes we have other things going on and we're not able to set in and, you know, share some thoughts, but
that's pretty rare though.
Yeah, that's been our typical time anymore, 4:30 Pacific Standard. And but yeah, had other folks indicating that they're not getting notifications as well. So I don't know what's up with that. Who knows? Let's see here.
Maybe they have it out for you.
Deathly afraid of tornadoes. I can see why, man. I mean, seriously, like at night, if they're rolling through, that would be frightening as hell. I guarantee you, if I was living out in a place where that was frequent, I would probably have invested into some kind of an underground shelter.
House with a basement or something.
Well, yeah, some way to get, out of that, because when some shit's rolling through or whatever, it's kind of not cool. It's scary. Yeah.
I mean, way back when, that's how they built houses, with basements. I grew up in a house that had a finished basement. That was my playroom growing up.
Yeah, I wish we had something such as that, but they stopped doing that for whatever reason, in most construction. But everything now is just a cheap throw it up, and they don't really think about those kinds of preparations. But tornadoes.
And in our house, I'm pretty sure they didn't measure the stairs out correctly.
Yeah. Tornadoes are very common here in North Louisiana. Spent a few hours this fall waiting it out, I guess. Yeah, I know that is a common occurrence. And like I say, it's an interesting weather phenomenon that fascinates me, but definitely it would be scary if I had to be anywhere in the vicinity. Yeah, we've been pretty productive here on the homestead, and we can talk a little bit about that here tonight. But oftentimes it really feels like you're not being very productive. I don't know if that's your sense, Rebecca, but I tend to feel like I'm doing and getting things done. And sometimes it's just getting the standard stuff done, and you're busy and you're doing stuff, but you're not making any progress. But, we've been making some slow and steady progress. And today was really nice. I went outside this morning and it was like, it almost felt like spring, a few degrees warmer. And I would have thought, oh, this is a spring day. It wasn't cold. It was nice. We haven't had to have the fire on all day today, and it went out, blue skies, no wind. And it just had that feel, when you walk out of your house and you just there's something about the day where you're just like, oh, this is super nice. Birds are chirping. And it was just that kind of day. And so I was pretty productive today, getting a lot of things done around here prior to going to the gym. And yeah, what have you been doing that's productive?
Well, I've been trying to perfect the lip balm, and I think that I've got the what is it?
I don't know.
I'm at a loss here for brain power.
Okay.
Recipe. That's what I was looking for. I think I've got the recipe quite down, or I've got it down. First time I did it, it was a little bit stiff, but the consistency of it right now is pretty good. So
yeah, no, I like that. Tried it out, and I think one of the things that's been a real positive for what we've been doing here on the homestead is just finding little ways that we can avoid purchasing things that we could make ourselves, whether that's something like a cleaning product or, a body product or a spice or something that we're eating, because you're in a much better position to control what's actually going in it. And so much of this stuff is pretty easy to make. Would you not say? I mean, it's pretty simple.
I was surprised at how easy the lip balm was to make.
Right.
I mean, it really didn't take any time at all.
Right.
Unlike the soap, where that's got a cure and it's got a period of time that it has to process to cure. The lip balm is done once you pour it in its container and it sets up.
Right.
So that actually went really fast.
Yeah. Still working on a bunch of leaves around here. I don't know if the rest of you guys are still in the throes of having your trees dropping leaves. Obviously different trees drop at different times, and some are already done, but some are still hanging in there and still shedding leaves. So I've been collecting copious amounts of those and then getting them over to the chicken yard, where the chickens are having a fantastic heyday of doing what they do best, of scratching and clawing and digging and searching for things within that pile of leaves. And I just recently put out a video that I think I released it this morning. And I had no idea that eggs were even an issue here in California, because obviously we don't buy eggs. But talking to a friend of mine who has chickens, but their chickens are unproductive. Their chickens are laid up for the winter. They're not producing. And I like to try to avoid that. I don't want to have just pets. I want them to actually be productive. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't just keep them around till they're old ladies like their pets. I roll them out and replace them with something that's going to be a little bit more in line with, hey, we don't have to go buy eggs in the wintertime. There's no reason we should be doing that. And so I put out this video kind of indicating and showing 5 steps, the things that are largely contribute to our being able to do that. And I will say that I know that a lot of people have their own personal choice with regard to what chicken breed is their favorite, what they think is best. I know that that's a very passionate argument. And I'm not here to say that any one breed is better than the next. It's just what works for you. These are a breed that has worked well for us. But I think one of the reasons why it's really worked well for us is because we let those chickens out. They're not confined to just a coop or a small area where they're getting their ass beat every day. If you have chickens in an area, they're going to henpeck one another. They're going to be a little bit more stressed. They're going to be a lot less likely to thrive. And I can say that with some confidence. And this is the reason why I didn't say that in the video that I just released, because I didn't really want to get into it. But I can tell you with confidence that having chickens that are active, that are out, that are happy, that are doing what chickens are supposed to do matters tremendously to their performance. It just does. The reason why I say that is because we sell, or when I get a large batch of chickens, I might order 50 birds. And then I'm not going to keep 50 for us. I'm going to probably get rid of half of those or what have you.
We could bathe in egg.
Yeah, well, we sure could. But I'm gonna take a portion of those, and I'm gonna sell them to family or friends or whatever. And I've done that. And in each and every time, the birds, the same birds that are in the flock with ours, the sister flock, that batch of birds, theirs is less productive than ours. Theirs lays up in the winter because they're not happy. they're in a little, chicken thing or whatever, a coop, and they're sitting in mud and they're sitting in their own feces. It's just not a really like great way to raise them. I mean, you can do that. A lot of people do, but they're just not going to be as happy. They're not going to be as productive. And so that's just been my personal experience. And like I say, I can speak to that and feel pretty confident in what I'm saying because we've seen it over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So
now speaking of chickens,
mm-hmm.
we've had a few more hatch.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, for me, it's pretty exciting. It's close to the day that they're supposed to come out, and I like to go check. I'm like a kid waiting for Christmas, I think. I have to go check and see if there's any little peck marks to see if they're coming out. But it's really interesting to watch them
Mm-hmm.
and their progress. And then obviously we have a few that are quitters, and just opening that up and looking at they're fully developed,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason, they just cannot finish the job of getting out. That's kind of sad.
Yeah. I think that's just kind of an inherent deal or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's been kind of our experience, at least with this latest batch of ones we've done out of the incubator. There's some of them that just don't make the grade. Some of them aren't fertilized to begin with, but we had a pretty large number of ones that were fertilized this time. So that lets us know that the rooster's doing what the rooster's supposed to be doing. And I've been real happy with that guy because he doesn't give me any shit. He doesn't challenge me. He doesn't challenge you. We don't let our grandson in there. I'm not going to do that because he's like, he's not high enough where the bird might look at him like he's some kind of thing he wants to like take a swipe at or something. But I mean, this bird's been pretty good, I think.
He's pretty chill. For a rooster, he's pretty chill.
Yeah, he's not a petting rooster, but I don't want a petting rooster. I don't want some lap bird, but he just does what he's supposed to do. And he kind of looks after the girls and does his business. And he's a hell of a composter. He moves some material. So I've been happy with him. Let me see here. I think, let's see, Bill Warner asked a question here. It says, has anyone else tried red star or brown sex link layers? I have not tried either of those, so I can't speak to that. But these Novogen browns, they are a red sex link. And so they're very easy to sex at birth. The little females are little yellow puffballs and the males are white. And so that's how they basically can sex them, just by their color in the hatchery. Makes it really easy. But I haven't tried either of the others that you're referring to there.
I think Skane's girl asked a question too.
Okay. Up here?
I think so.
Let's see. Kind of hard to see here. Says that's the one of the things I take into consideration when prepping. Can I make it? If so, stock up on ingredients. If not, can I barter for it? Yeah, that's all really smart and good thinking. I think it's good to know how to make things, not only for that control, but just the ability. Like, what happens if you can't get something? What happens if you can't go to the store? What happens if there's another supply chain issue? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of what ifs. And so it's just good to like build your skill set. And then what that does is it makes you a lot more autonomous and a lot more confident in your ability to provide for yourself and your family. And so it's fantastic. That's a great way to look at it. Here, I want you to take a look at those comments. So I'm not just sitting here reading silently, but see if I need to address anything there. I was cleaning the gutters the other day because of the leaves, right? Mm-hmm. And I only got 3/4 of the way. Do you know why?
I do not know why.
Well, it's because I'm getting older, and I don't know if that makes me more wiser or more scared, but the south side of our house has a little bit of a steeper pitch than the other. Not much, but when you're on it, it's noticeable. You can't even really look at it and see that it's a different, pitch. But I was up there and I was like, man, if I fall off this thing, I could be really seriously hurt. And so I just decided it wasn't worth me getting up on the roof and trying to get close to the edge and blow it out with a leaf blower. So that side of the house hasn't been taken care of. So I either need to come up with some kind of, I've seen on the internet, everybody's got great ideas on the internet, but they've got like a piece of PVC with a thing that goes up and it kind of, you can stand on the ground and blow stuff out of your thing. I might try doing something like that, but I'm getting a little bit more gun shy as I get older, realizing that if I fall off of some shit like that, it could be curtains, man. You fall wrong and it could be game over. I think I told the story of a couple of years ago, maybe it was about a year and a half ago or so, but I happened to be up on a ladder out working on trees with a chainsaw, a saw running. And then something happens. I kind of lose my balance and I jump down, saw's running. I throw the saw away, but I hit the ground and I kind of roll away. And then it was just kind of freaked me out. I'm like, man, that was close. That was stupid. And then that same very day, I get this email of a dude that I worked with, and he was about 70 years old, but the dude was fit, man. For 70, he was a stud. And he was working in his orchard because he had an orchard with, almonds. And he was out doing something up on a ladder and he fell, landed wrong. He punctured a lung and broke a bunch of ribs and landed on his head. And he had a skull fracture. Turns out the guy was on life support for about a week. And they said, you know what? He's brain dead. And so they had to actually make the decision to pull the pin on him. And he's out just doing his thing. And it just really, like, when stuff like that happens, it makes you kind of go, I don't need to be up on a ladder doing stupid shit. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So there was another incident that happened, and this is something I'll never forget. I guess this is story time about falling off a ladder here right now, but I was on a call down in Riverside County when I worked down there, and I responded to this call for a fall victim. And I get there, and this dude, probably about my age now, he's probably 60 or something, maybe 65 or whatever, and he falls off this ladder.
You are not 60.
Well, I'm 59, so I'm pretty damn close. But anyhow, this dude falls off this ladder and he freaking compound fractured both of his femurs. And it was gross as hell because the what am I doing? Hold on a second. The bones poked through his pants, and then they retracted, of course. But I mean, there's blood on both legs, and there's bone fragments and shit on the ground. I mean, it just this dude's bones were must have been super brittle or something, but it blew his femurs completely up, and he had bone fragments, on the ground. Yeah. And it was maybe a, I don't know, 8-10 foot fall, and he just landed wrong, So
yeah,
needless to say, the gutters are only 3/4 of the way done. I hope you will forgive me, but I need to come up with a different plan. Okay.
Of course I forgive you. You're the one that's up there doing it.
Oh, man, that's crazy.
Risking it.
Yeah. Let's see here. Madgura. How are you? Welcome. Says, hey guys. I haven't seen you in the channel before, but it says, hey guys, very cool content. I see you guys put out. I'm using similar methods for compost production. I'm working on systems to deploy quickly. I'm starting at churches, growing them a garden. Yeah, that's super good. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Composting is something, again, that I have a passion for. Building soil, it's something I have an interest in and a passion for. And it's born out of something that I've done for a lot of years, growing up as a kid, seeing my dad do it, seeing the garden that he grew. And it's something that, stepped away from a period of time as I grew up and we moved in different places and whatnot. But I've always had a garden to some extent. And, now we're kind of in our, I guess, forever home, or at least forever for now home. We've been here for 24 years, and there's nothing better that you can do to your property than to try to improve the quality of the soil. And you can do that very easily by just paying attention to trying to replicate what nature does. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And I'm doing it by the use of chickens. And so it's fantastic that, you're out there doing the composting thing. I think there's a lot that people can do. There's a lot of different ways and methods to composting. I don't really think that there's one specific right way to do anything. All I would advocate that people do is go out and to try to validate some of the things that you see people doing on the internet, because you're going to see a lot of people doing a lot of things. And a lot of those people think that they've got the answer of how to do something, and it may or may not work for you. So you have to go out there and to try to say, well, is that going to work in my circumstance? Is that going to work for what I have to work with here? Is it going to work with my soil conditions? Because that's the thing about composting that I think people, fail to recognize, is that they see something, particularly on the internet. Oh, look, it's hot, it's smoky, it's thermophilic, it's this or it's that. Well, here's the reality of composting. You don't know what the fuck it is. Unless you're a soil scientist, unless you're somebody who can legit look under a microscope and say, oh, that's an arthropod, that's a harmful bacteria, that's a protozoa, that's this, that's that. You don't really know what you've created. Yeah, there's a lot of things moving around in there. Some of them good, some of them may not be so good. And your ratios of what you've created may work well, or it may not work very well with what you're trying to apply it to. Maybe still very high in nitrogen. It may be deficient in this. It may, so there's a lot of variables. And the way that I approach it is that I like to take my time with composting. And the reason why that is because Mother Nature takes its damn sweet time. The longer you wait, the more mellow something's going to get, generally speaking, if you can keep it wet, because there's going to be biological activity there that's going to be doing what it does, regardless of whether or not you can see it. It's going to be happening. And the way that you know that it's happening is when you look at that soil, pull that moist soil back, and you see things moving. You see worms, you see other invertebrates. That's how you know that you've got something that things want to live in that are probably beneficial. But you could have bad things in there, but just take time. Everything is going to be corrected for the most part, unless you start with poison. It's going to be smoothed out and made more mellow over the course of time. So that's why most of my compost stays in my chicken yard for about a year. At this point, I've got enough in the works where it's just, I've got a lot of compost in there, and I take it out as I need it. Sure, I can make compost in 18 days, but what the fuck is it, man? You have to have your ratios really, really perfect. And you have to, be on spot with turning it over and aerating it and all of that. So
on top of that, chickens are really good at taking your leftover scraps and turn them into compost.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate you joining us here on the channel, and, compost away, man. And I hope some of the content that we put out is in some ways useful to you. Take the good stuff that you like and take the rest of it and discard it and say, oh, no, that doesn't work for me.
I have learned something, though, with the chickens.
Mm-hmm.
When you're out there dealing with them, do not carry crackers in your hand or even attempt to stick one in your mouth, because they will steal them.
Yeah. Let's see here. Question from Madgura. One problem I'm having is people are generally untrusting of someone offering a free system that improves their life and food security. Do you guys have any ideas for community building? Sure. I think one of the best ways that you can build community is to try to actually go out and physically meet people. It's generally speaking better in your local area. Find groups that are doing things within your area that you have an interest in. That's probably the best way to go. Find people that are local so that you can frequently interact with them, because it makes it difficult. We all here tonight, most of us are miles and miles apart, and we are, in a sense, a part of a community of people, of like-minded individuals who, have common interests to some extent, right? Mm-hmm. But, getting together and actually forming a community, it really requires you to be a little bit more proximal, a little bit closer than on the internet. But this is a great start as well. Getting out, meeting people, talking to people. And that's what I would suggest doing. Do you have any other suggestions, Rebecca?
just if your neighbors, to meet your neighbors and introduce yourself and find out what they're about. And maybe they have the same interests as you, and you can kind of build from there. I would say that there's very few of our neighbors that have the exact same interest. As far as like next door to us. I mean, obviously we have family that's a few miles away and they have the same interest. And so we can build with them. But
right.
But it is good to know your neighbors and introduce yourself, find out what they're about and see if there is something that you can build upon.
Yeah, that's a really big thing to do, I think, is just introduce yourself. I mean, I lived here for years and there was people that, you come and go, you don't really talk to folks that much and people don't want to be bothered or you don't want to be bothered or whatever, but it's just a good idea to kind of extend that olive branch to some extent and make sure that people at least know your phone number, know who you are. And so if you actually run into them in town, you'll be like, oh, hey, that's my neighbor. Instead of walking past them going, who the fuck is that guy? Or I've never seen that person or I don't know what their name is. But yeah, it's a thing that I would advocate as well. I think that's a good point, Rebecca. Let's see here. I saw Without Training Wheels is in the house, says, wait for rain and then blow up the spout with a leaf blower. Yeah, I've actually done a video on that, man. I did a little short showing me doing that. That actually works quite well. But I've got a tremendous amount of leaves. I'm not talking a little clog. I mean, we're talking the whole thing's filled. I've got a tree that I planted that was kind of a poor choice on my part. And, live and learn, so I suppose. It's a good tree, but it's got to go. It's one I'm going to probably take out this year. It's right in front of my house, right out in the front door. But I'm going to have some root intrusion that's actually starting to crack my sidewalk. And I can't have that. But this tree it's a Raywood ash. Really nice tree, nice ornamental type tree. But, I've had Raywood ashes elsewhere at different points. My dad had a couple of Raywood ashes. I planted one at another house that we purchased. And I didn't know it would grow this freaking tall, man.
Yeah, this one's huge.
It loves it there. It's like 45 feet tall and probably about 2 feet DBH, diameter at breast height. So it's got some wood in it. And it's really too close to my house. So I'm going to have to get that thing out of there, but it drops all those leaves, on top of the roof and in the house and all that. So HRDs, how are you? Good to see you this evening. Let's see here. 26 for a carton of eggs, 5 dozen should be around $10. Yeah. 26 for a carton of eggs. Yeah. Yeah, take a look at.
I can't really read it. That's why I'm.
Why not? Because your glasses, you can't see it, or are you too far away?
I'm too far away for me to be actually to see it.
Okay. Yeah. So we hatched some chicks. Put out that video.
We did. I do have to say that one of the things that's kind of out there is assisting chicks. And when you hear them, when they're getting close to being born, they cheep. And a lot of times it's strong and then it kind of gets a little bit weaker. And I would say at that point, if it's getting weaker, then to go ahead and help assist if the egg is cracked and they've, done quite a bit of the work.
Yeah.
To go ahead and help them assist. So we did assist one.
Yeah.
Who was doing very well.
Yeah, it shouldn't be necessary, but that's kind of been our experience here in the last couple of hatches that we've done. There's been some that have been fully formed and they just get to that point where they get the shell almost all the way open and then they just give it up, so
it's that inner that they just can't. It's so thick. And if it's not enough moisture in there, then it kind of dries out and it's really hard for them to break it.
Right. Well, it is tree pruning season, guys. It's dormant season for not all of our trees. There's still some of them that are losing their leaves, but for the majority of our fruit trees, our nut trees, and any of the other trees that I have around here that I typically will prune back or pollard or something like that. I've been working on those. And, tree pruning for fruit trees is, it's kind of necessary in the way that I look at managing fruit trees. It can be kind of intimidating to people. I think that there's a lot of people that might be intimidated by that. What I typically see a lot of people do that, hey, I want to plant a fruit tree, and they go and they buy a fruit tree, either from a nursery or one of the stores or what have you, and they get it in the ground, and, they're pruned up to a certain extent when you have them wherever you purchase them. Usually they're quite gangly. They're quite a lot of like long limbs and things. They kind of prune them up thinking, okay, this is what somebody's going to want to buy. But if you don't bring them home and then like significantly prune them back, you're going to just wind up with this kind of spindly tree that, isn't going to be very productive. It's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be very strong. It's going to take a lot longer for it to actually develop and establish a good root structure, a good trunk, a good scaffold. And so typically what I do, if I purchase a new tree, that's like a 2-year-old tree from a nursery, that's like a bare root. That's typically about the year that they'll be, and get them home. And then I hard prune them. I bring them down because one of the things that I want out of a fruit tree, now this may be different for you. You may be looking at having a tree that's out in an area where you've got deer browse. And if you've got deer browse, you might want your fruit set to be up, like about head height. But I typically like to see fruit trees so that I don't have to get up on a ladder. I want all my fruit down low, because where I've got the majority of my fruit trees at this point are in an area that's deer fenced. And so I don't have to worry about them coming in and snacking on my stuff. So I want to be able to bring that fruit set down. And so I'll take a tree and I want the scaffold to start. The scaffold is basically like, it's like, kind of looks like that, right? It's got your main trunk, and then you've got your different branches that take off. And typically you're going to want at least 3 for your scaffold, because if you get one that breaks, then you're going to have this kind of like less than tree. So I like to have actually like 4 to 5 for my main scaffold, but I like to see that start to set about in between my knees and my hip. So about 3 feet, I'll take that tree down. That's where I want my scaffold to start. And then, in the summertime, I'll summer prune again, because you're going to get an awful lot of vigor throughout the summer, and you'll have this tree that's super tall. So I'll come through once in the summer, at least once in the summer, and I'll take it down probably to about a little above head height, about what I can reach above my head. So head height, and then what I can reach, and then I'll take it down to that level. But then you come through in the winter time, like right now in the dormant period, and I'm basically, I'm doing like the final pruning for my fruit set for this year. When they're dormant, it's a lot easier to see what you're actually doing. The leaves aren't obscuring your view. You can basically remove any damaged or diseased wood. That's the first place you're going to start. Any damaged or diseased wood, you're going to want to take completely out. And then you're going to want to take any crossing branches that are too close, that are crossing. Essentially what I'm looking for is good vertical separation between my branches and good horizontal separation, so that it maximizes the amount of sunlight penetration and air circulation within the tree, which is going to basically allow and encourage, better growth, space for things to grow. Plus, it's going to improve your yield on your fruit and quality, because you're going to have that air circulation. You're going to have sunlight being able to come in and contact. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I've got a number of trees that I've already kind of worked on, but I've got a lot more to do, which is kind of fun for me. I haven't decided to do any kind of a video on that or anything. But I thought I'd talk about it a little bit here tonight, in case people are, thinking about putting in some fruit trees, because I really think that having perennials like fruit and nut trees on your property, it really just only enhances your ability to not only provide food for yourself, but when you plant things like that, it ups the value of your property. It's one of the few things that you can do to your property from the standpoint of upping the value of it without the federal government coming in and going, oh, we're going to tax that improvement. Right? If you plant things on your property like that, nice trees and stuff, it really ups the value, the resale value of your property, not only firewood, shade, aesthetics, windbreak, privacy, food production, right? There's just so much value in having a tree on your property or multiple trees, an orchard. And, the feds don't come in, at least at this point in history, and say, oh, we've noticed you've put in 25 more trees, Mr. Johnson. That'll be another such and such taxes we're going to charge you and assess to your property taxes.
You just gave them an idea.
And well, that's coming. I mean, these bastards, they want everything that they can possibly get, and they haven't earned a damn thing. They want something for nothing.
So I have to ask.
Don't get me fired up.
I have to ask.
I'm being mellow and talking about fruit trees now.
Okay. Relax. In the chicken yard,
mm-hmm.
you had one that you actually tied the branches out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was a mulberry?
Yeah, Pakistan mulberry.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why you tied those branches out like that was to provide more shade, or?
It was to train my main scaffold so that the main scaffold now is going more in a horizontal fashion rather than wanting to go vertically. Because I don't really want the height in there, because here's another thing. Like, sometimes you plant trees in an area. Like I can tell you this with certainty that there's trees that I've planted in that chicken yard that probably weren't the best selection when I planted them, but I didn't exactly know what that was going to be at the time when I planted them. And now that I've got those trees in there and they're in proximity to other trees that are going to be encroaching, like, for example, I've got a walnut tree in there that a walnut tree wants to be 30 feet tall, 35 feet tall, if you just let it do its thing. But, most any tree can be managed if you manage it appropriately, but it's going to require you doing that annually to bring it down to size, or it will just completely get out of hand. But all of the trees in the chicken yard, I aggressively manage. And that was one of the reasons why I tied those branches out, because I wanted that main scaffold so that it would be about head height. When I walk through there, I'm going to be able to reach up and pick berries and not have to get up on a ladder for at least that portion of the tree. There's going to be other tree, branches that are going to go up that are going to do that. But that was the reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And while you're picking berries, you have a flock of chickens who are your best friends.
Man, they just love those things. They love those things. Let's see. There's so many comments here, man. Hey, what's up, Brady? Good to see you, man. Thank you.
Hey, Brady.
Bill Warner says, I was blown away when I drove 3 hours from my home and met Eric at a festival near me. I stepped way out of my comfort zone by committing to attending any gatherings with more than a few people. That's what you have to do. You really do. And go to these festivals if you're looking to meet other folks that are like-minded and network with them. I would suggest doing that. And then when you get there, here's the other thing. Don't just be a wallflower. Don't just not talk to people, but go up and introduce yourself and say, hey, man, how you doing? I'm from so-and-so. I'm from whatever. And you can meet people that way. Because I can almost assure you they're there probably with their hands in their pockets thinking, well, maybe should I say anything to somebody or whatever. They went there for the expressed intent of meeting people and possibly building and or establishing community. So, don't waste that opportunity to reach out and meet people. And
I'm sure you enjoyed meeting Bill as well.
Yeah. I met a lot of people there that were super cool. It's been worth my time. I actually drove from California twice. I flew once, I think, to Kentucky, and then I've driven actually. Yeah, I've flown. Yeah,
that was an experience, huh?
Oh, it's awesome. I like actually getting on the road.
About the flight.
Oh, Spirit Airlines. Let's not talk about that. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Also recently, a large amount of flocks have been culled due to the bird flu. The egg price is seeing it. Yes, that's one of the reasons why there's high egg prices here in California, because of that reason. And the more that you can try to eliminate being beholden to that, the better you're going to be. And I understand not everybody has the ability, nor the time, nor the desire to commit to like raising chickens in the way that we do. But I'm here to say that that is something that is available to you if in fact you want to go that direction. Not everybody has some people just want to buy their eggs, or some people will be like, egg price is too much. I don't eat eggs, whatever, and I get that. But if you're looking to be more self-sufficient, this is one way you can do it. Mm-hmm. Right.
That herbs, you can grow herbs anywhere you're at.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've got plenty of those. And I've got some things I got to get to the nursery for. I want to put in a lot more strawberries this year. And then I've got some other things I need to go down to the nursery and see about getting in the ground.
We have a granddaughter that you'd be lucky if you could beat her to their strawberries.
I know. Yeah. They did well for us last year. I've been trying to air layer every time I prune, so I have many mulberry trees and citrus ready to cut and transition. Have you cut any air layers off in the dormant season? No, but I just, in the dormant season, I haven't done any air layering. I think it's a decent way to go, but I haven't done any of that sort of cultivation. What I'm interested in doing around here, I've done some seed propagation, and then I've also done, just live staking. And I've got some trees right now that I don't know if I'm going to live stake too much this year, but for my fodder trees, that's essentially what you need to do with those. They're about the easiest thing you could possibly plant. And you just basically take the cuttings, stick them in the ground in the dormant period, and let the rain do the rest. So long as the ground's wet and it's going to stay moist, it'll strike root for you. And I had actually thought of maybe offering up some of those cuttings or something, putting them up on the website if people were interested. But, I would only do that if people expressed an interest in doing it. I mean, it works for me. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but these are trees that I got from a friend. Yeah, it's been 20 years and they're still rolling. And I cut them back every year, and I cut the canes off and feed them to my sheep. And, you could feed them to a bunch of other stuff, and they make firewood, they make whatever else, ornamental, windscreen, privacy. So, but no, I haven't done any air layering, but I have seen that done, and it's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, when I had to help my mom with hatching chicks, I noticed that what Rebecca said is true. I would use a cotton ball with water to aid removal. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it definitely, I don't know.
I mean, obviously, for them to naturally hatch themselves is the best way to go. But like I said, you hear them and they've got a really strong peep, and you start to hear that soften.
Yeah.
And that's when I would suggest, intervene and help kind of open up the airway and let them not completely take them out, but get them to where it's less of a struggle for them.
Yeah.
And they can get themselves out. Yeah,
that's true. I've also, right now, guys, if you do have fruit trees out and, or other perennials that you're concerned with, but I primarily am just concerned about putting this on my fruit trees, my nut trees, and, ones particularly like their stone fruits, is putting on like dormant oil or horticultural dormant oil.
So what is dormant oil?
It's basically just a way to, to preserve and to protect the trees, the bark of the trees from pests and other invading insects that might want to inhabit your tree. And you basically want to put it on. The timing of it is kind of late winter. You can do it in early spring, but you definitely want to do it before the buds break. I've got a couple of trees out there right now that are starting to show a little bit of bud swell. The almonds are early to do that. And then I've got some early, I was looking at them today, some of my peaches that are going to be early, but I mean, they're not getting ready to swell that much, but I could see they're starting to get there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you definitely want to put that on and apply it when early in the morning. You don't want to do it like in this middle of the day or whatever, but early in the morning, typically when there's no wind and then, you've got temperatures that are above like 40 degrees and it's going to be dry for 24 hours. And so it's just a good thing that like helps to control many pests that might want to live through the winter on your tree trunks and, in the buds and the twigs of the trees, essentially.
So what's it do for the pest? I mean, is it something that they eat and don't like, or what?
It's a repellent. Yeah, it repels them. So it just helps to ensure better health of your tree. So now's the time when you're going to want to do that. You also might want to spray copper. Okay. That's something I've got to do too. And copper is just it's a natural fungicide and kind of a bactericide that, again, combats various diseases that you might find in fruit trees like leaf spot or blight or powdery mildew. These are things that are kind of inherent with certain things like peaches and apricots and, plums and stuff like that. So it's just a good idea to particularly hit your peaches and your nectarines with the copper. But the timing is basically the same as horticultural oil, and you want to do that before the bud break. There's like 3 times you want to spray. There's before bud break, which is like right now. And then during the leaf emergence, when the leaves come out, you want to hit them again. And then post harvest in fall, you would want to hit them again. So it's just a way to ensure better health of your trees and hopefully stave off some of the things that are inherent with fruit trees, right?
Yeah,
you don't have to do it, right? There's a lot of things you don't have to do. You don't have to prune your trees. You don't have to, anything. You can put a tree in the ground and, hey, look at this tree. It's fruiting, and it's got apples on it or whatever. But over the course of time, that tree's going to develop problems. And some trees last for many, many years, but the majority of trees have like a lifespan, like anything. They have a lifespan, and typical lifespan for a lot of fruit trees is 20, 25 years, some 15 years, and they start developing problems, and health problems. And so
does that help with the ants at all? On fruit trees, the ants like to get up.
Ants aren't really a problem at all for fruit trees. What ants really indicate is that you've got like sugar on something, and that's what the ants are interested in. They're not harmful in any way to fruit trees or any of that. They're going to go up and, get on your fruit or whatever, but ants are not specifically harmful to.
The birds are.
Yeah, birds for sure. But anyhow, those are things that you want to probably consider doing at this time of year. And it's things that I went out and sprayed hort oil today on all my trees, and I'm going to hit them with copper here. I'm actually out of copper. I need to go purchase some, but I need to grab that. What's up, Hogs 14? How are you, man?
Hey, Hogs.
Let's see here. Without Training Wheel says, I cut 30 plus strawberry clones last year. This year's harvest should be delightful. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, those things will get better each year, and they'll send out runners. I planted a number of different ever-bearing strawberries. I should have planted more, but I'll probably plant more this year. I got to get up to a nursery and see what they have bare root stock available. But I plant ever-bearing strawberries, ones that are noted for sending out runners, because I want them to run in the areas where I'm planting them. I'm planting them around my fruit trees, kind of, and in areas that I'm trying to make an edible landscape, and I'm utilizing that as ground cover as well as something that you can eat. And so they've sent out a number of different runners from what I planted last year, and they're healthy, and they're going to come back this year and do the same, keep growing. But I want to put in more of that. Strawberries are pretty cool. You can get like June bearing, or you can get ever bearing. June bearing is basically going to be like probably about what you'd see in a store, the big fat ones, the big ones, because they only like come into fruit like once a year in June. So that's the harvest, is that window in June. So they're called June bearing, but they're usually a much larger strawberry. And those are the ones that you're going to find, generally speaking, in your supermarket or whatever. But, the ever bearing are ones that are going to continually throughout the season just keep putting on fruit. They're going to be a smaller, strawberry, but, whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm. They all taste the same.
Yeah, they do. So yeah, it's also bare root season, guys. Hang on a second. I see. Let's see here. I'm just trying to get caught up on some of these comments. It says, you make me think of an idea. Here in Mississippi, we have a lot of local markets and farmers. On Wednesdays, we all get together and trade cuttings and seeds, sometime bare root plants, an online version. Mm-hmm. That would be useful, man. I think seed exchanges and, sharing seeds is pretty cool. I've got some interesting seed offerings from people that I've met at these festivals. Hey, here's some of this, here's some of that. And now I have the seed. If it's something that I actually like, then, I can harvest the seed and hopefully propagate it here, depending on what it is.
Well, we have that pretty cool pumpkin. See if I can speak. Pretty cool pumpkin that's on the front porch. You got that from our son-in-law, didn't you? The seed for that?
No, I bought that actually. I bought that, and I'm going to keep the seed from that and replant that. I did get some of the other ones, the smaller ones that are like gourds. Mm-hmm. I got that from Bree and Gray. But yeah, those were cool.
Yes. They have the little knobbies on them.
Yeah, they're all warty and stuff, but they're just like an ornamental gourd or whatever. You don't eat those things. But
this other one, it's like a melon kind of color.
Yeah. No, it's. I think it was like a giant, but it didn't get too giant. But it's that kind of a shape, Mm-hmm. But most of those are, for me this year, going to just go back out in the orchard. Those were all just what I scattered around out in the orchard, and I like to see what comes up on its own. I don't want to give it too much thought. I scatter a lot of seed out there. I scattered some seed from some flower that, beautiful flower, beautiful ornamental. I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank on what it is, but puts out these nice seed pods too. And then you take the seeds when they mature, and I just sprinkle them around out there, and then they'll just keep coming up. And, that's the way to go, man. Just let the plant figure out, hey, I like it here. This is cool. I like it here. And you don't have to sit there and go and water it, and you're going through all this hassle. Just scatter a bunch of seed and see what comes up. But that only works really good if you take care of your soil, and that's why I'm using the compost. I'm trying to reintroduce that fertility and continue to build upon, making, the orchard something that, where stuff's going to want to grow. So, let's see. Hog says that our library has a seed exchange from redwood seeds, etc. Oh yeah. Redwood seeds. Yeah. Redwood seeds is cool. Local out of, I believe, Manton up there on the hill. But yeah, they've got some pretty good seeds. I've bought a lot from them, and I see their product in a lot of the local places where stuff like that's sold, in nurseries and things. So whenever I see their seed, and if I'm buying something, I'll purchase from them rather than buying some, shit that came from Burpee or whatever, But yeah, they're a good deal. So it's also bare root season right now. It's a season that I get kind of excited about for that reason. Just because, I think if you're thinking about putting in a fruit tree this year, or you're thinking about maybe adding a few trees, maybe, developing a small orchard, or maybe you're just wanting to have a couple of plant guilds that you want to get established or something, now's the time to think about doing that. One of the reasons why bare root season is to your advantage is because you get to, particularly early in the year. So like around here in our area, in our area, January is when they get their stock. So you can go to the local nursery to the north, you can go to the one in the south, and they're going to have gotten their commercial shipment in, and you're better off getting there early so you can get the things that maybe you want, because they're going to run out of things after a period of time. You'll be able to get bare root stock all the way up until, at least in our area, from January till about March, right? March 15th or whatever, maybe. But by March 15th, they've already run out of a bunch of stuff. And so you're going to kind of get what's left over. And they're going to start getting to the point where they're getting ready to pot those up.
So what's the advantage of the bare root?
Well, one of the big advantages is,
other than cost.
Yeah, they're going to be cheaper, generally speaking. You're going to have better selection, generally speaking, depending on where you go and what you're looking to get. There's a caveat to that, however. A lot of people might think, oh, I'm going to get a bare root tree, and they're going to go and they're going to pick one up at Home Depot or Tractor Supply or whatever. And they're bare root trees, don't get me wrong, but they're not probably, in my opinion, like that great of an option, because they're in those little plastic bags. I know you've probably seen them. They're in those little plastic bags that just sit there in the store for weeks upon weeks, right? And they're drying out. They're shitty, most of which you can't even look and see, like, hey, what's the root stock? What root stock is this cultivar put on? You get an opportunity if, like, you go to a nursery to visually inspect the tree, look at the root stock, look at the graft, look at all of that, and say, this is a tree that I think is going to work for me. I like the structure of it, right? You're going to get a chance to do all of that. And then you're going to take it home and you're going to put it in the ground and you're going to plant it. And then you're on your way. But that's the benefit to it, is you get a chance to really, not only cost, but, the different varieties, the different cultivars that you have available to you, depending on where you go. Again, if you go to a commercial nursery that's getting their stock from their supplier, our supplier in this area is Dave Wilson Nursery. And now you can go on the internet and you can look up Dave Wilson Nursery on YouTube, and they've got just a library of information there. If you want to learn how to prune a tree, go look at some of their stuff. You want to look up something about fruit trees, look at some of their stuff. They're very reputable, but that's what I would recommend people do if you're looking to get bare root stock. Go to an actual nursery. Don't go to Tractor Supply. I'm not saying that those trees won't work. I've got some trees like that I've put into the ground, and they work, but they're not great. Selecting your rootstock is something you're going to want to maybe consider, because you're going to be able to match. You're going to be able to match the rootstock to the soil type that you have. That's important to do. If you've got clay soil, if you've got sandy soil, if you've got whatever, you're going to want to do a little research on that and learn about that. I actually did a video. I might put the link to it in this episode, when I get off here or whatever. But if I don't, you can just go on and look it up. But it's planting or selecting trees. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's a pretty extensive video about selecting bare root trees. And the whole, it's pretty comprehensive and talks a lot about what you want to consider if you're doing that and you're new to this. There's a lot of things to consider. And so maybe I'll do that and put that in there, because we're talking about it and it might be useful to some folks. But I put it out last year, spent some time putting that video together that I think is pretty pretty well done and comprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, bare root season, guys. Get excited about it. Get pumped. Go plant some trees.
Yes. Didn't you do that with roses before we moved here? Did you
Yeah.
plant some bare root roses?
Yeah. Roses. You can do bare root with bare root is it's great this time of year, because essentially when you have a tree that's dormant, it's sleeping, it's taking a nap, and you can do a lot of things to it. You can prune it back real hard. You could take it out of the ground entirely. Its root system. There's no growth happening at that point. It's just sleeping. And so if you take care of the root wad, the root structure, and you extract it from the ground and you keep that root structure from drying out, a lot of times it's put into a pit of sand, usually in like where they have them in a nursery, and you see them in those bags in the store, which I don't advocate for, but those are like usually in sawdust. Mm-hmm. And so you're just trying to keep the roots from drying out, and you can move that thing. You can bring it home. If you don't know where you want to put it at that point in time, you can basically just heel it in. You can, just open up the ground and then just lay it in sideways, cover a mound back over just keep it. And you can come back in a week or so, or even longer. You can just leave it there but you definitely want to start planting it before it starts to break dormancy, before those buds swell and it starts to try to put on a fruit set, because when it does that, it's going to start sending out roots that are going to be feeder roots that are the new growth. And you don't want to start disturbing it at that point.
So prior to moving here, we lived in a neighborhood, and one of the things that Eric had put in was quite an extensive rose garden that wrapped around the front of the house. Uh-huh. Those were beautiful.
Yeah, there were climbing rows that went on the thing, and then I had some ornamental trees on either side, and then some shrubs that were, and a lot of people really commented on how beautiful that was. Mm-hmm. And then of course the neighbors on either side of me used to give me shit like, "Hey, you're making me look bad." It's like, I ain't fucking stopping you from planting some shit on your property, dude. What are you talking about? I'm trying to make mine look nice. But
the other thing that Eric did when we lived in that neighborhood was, in our backyard, beyond our fence was an empty field. And so he actually cut the fence down mm-hmm. so that you could see the field behind, because mm-hmm. it was a beautiful view. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting is almost all of the houses did the exact same thing after seeing what Eric did.
Yeah, they got the idea like, hey, that's a good idea. Because that was one of the things that attracted me to that house in that neighborhood, is that particular area was public land and it wasn't going to be developed. And so I knew that like on the backside, it was just going to be kind of open space. I didn't have somebody looking down on me, from that angle. But yeah, that was the city life.
As long as you could take it.
Right.
7 years.
Yeah, that's enough. Bill Warner says, we have a nursery here in Jackson, Tennessee that sells, soil amendment mix that I need for the clay soil. I got it home and found it was 1% ground plastic, like old plant pots and solo cups.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's fucking not cool, man. I don't like that. Yeah, you got to be careful with what you're getting from some of these people, because they're just trying to make a buck, I've got a couple videos, man, on planting in clay soil. And so again, if you're planting your bare root stock, and now this will work regardless of, this planting technique will work regardless of whether or not you have clay soil or you don't. And I would advocate doing it even if you don't. But essentially you're just raising it up above ground level and setting it there and planting so that the rootstock and the graft union and everything sits well above the level of the ground. Because the last thing you need to do is have your roots being overly saturated. And this just allows for that natural flow and drainage away from the most important part of your tree, which is the rootstock. That's the basis by which everything grows from. So yeah, go take a look at those videos. If you're interested. It was, like I say, it is that season. And I'll probably do a better job of watching it than me talking about it here, but I just thought I'd mention all that stuff.
The one below. There you go.
Yeah, McDurr says that's the main reason that he stopped buying soil and started producing for our own community. Yeah, then the chickens just make it a no-brainer. Yeah, doing it with the chickens is kind of fun. Yeah, I've been very happy with it. Very happy with what we've done here with the chickens and how that yard has developed, and it has developed over the course of its evolution. But I've got a couple questions that I thought I'd go over, some Q&A.
Okay, I will be right back.
Okay. Let's see here. This one is, I did a video on inoculating biochar. And, it's been fairly well received. It continues to get, a number of people looking at it. So I'm always getting new eyes brought to this particular video. And this is a comment a couple days ago from Shogun Bear. And it says, one of the best inoculants is lactobacillus culture and molasses. Molasses is loaded with micronutrients and has an NPK count. The lactobacillus culture will enrich your soil bacteria. Lactobacillus is a natural byproduct of cheese and yogurt making. You can also add aquarium-grade nitrifying bacteria to your pond or livestock water source to supercharge the existing bacterial flora. You would need to add aeration to properly encourage the aerobic nitrifying bacteria. And that's true. I said, this is what I said in response. I said, absolutely. Lactobacillus is an aerotolerant anaerobe that will only add biological diversity useful in deeply compacted anaerobic soil conditions. It's the primary bacteria responsible for making silage, bokashi composting, and human digestion. Thanks for your input and watching the video. And yeah, I've experimented and cultured my own lactobacillus bacteria when I was making some bokashi compost. A while ago, I was experimenting with that and playing around and seeing what I could come up with there. And so I made my own lactobacillus bacteria, cultured right from white rice, and steeped it for about a week, and came back and added like 1 part to 10 parts milk, and then let it sit for another couple of weeks and ferment. And then the final stage was adding sugar as the fuel or the food for that bacteria. And yeah, it's something I've experimented with in that, and not only making silage. That's a form of lactobacillus bacteria that's being starved of oxygen. It's in an anaerobic environment. That's what anaerobic means, is without oxygen. And so you can get really nerdy with this stuff, I guess. My point to this is that, biochar inoculation, you can do a lot of different things, as Shogun Bear has indicated, right? But it just depends on how nerdy you want to get with all this stuff. Again, there's no one right way to do this. There's no one right way to inoculate, no one best practice with regard to what you're inoculating with. The most important thing about inoculation of biochar is just making sure that you're inoculating it with something, because if you don't, it's going to attract those micro and macronutrients from your soil. So it's best to try to charge it before you put it into your soil. So whether it's urine or whether it's like a form of molasses or some kind of a thing that has a lot of its own micro or macronutrients already in it, whether it's just putting it in compost like I do. I don't get too concerned with I need to add this to it. I just take my biochar and I add it to my compost in the chicken yard. And then over time, before that compost comes out of there, it's going to be charged up because it's taking up from what that fertility is where I'm putting it. And so, I mentioned aero tolerant. This is just some nerdy shit right here. Maybe you don't even care, but I just thought I'd clarify. But aero tolerant, what that means is that it doesn't utilize oxygen, but it's not harmed by oxygen. It's not harmed by the presence of oxygen. It's an anaerobic bacteria. But there's also another called obligate anaerobes, and those are, in fact, harmed by the presence of oxygen. And then the last one is what's called facultative anaerobes, and they can utilize oxygen if it's present, but it can grow in its absence. So it can either use oxygen or it can grow without it. So facultative anaerobes are kind of even better. But what he's referring to, lactobacillus, is an aero tolerant. And so, again, nerdy stuff, right? But anywho, let me move on to the next question. Let's see here. Okay. This is a chicken coop cleaning video that I put out quite some time ago, actually. And again, it still keeps getting served to people. They keep seeing it, and it's new to them. And this person said it's from Stories and Songs with Joy. Says, I'm passionate about a few things, one being permaculture. One assignment is to watch some deep bedding chicken videos, and this is a good one. Didn't think about the charcoal, but awesome. It's super good for us humans too. Upset stomach or strangeness after eating. I take a couple and it helps. Even for kids when they feel sick or throwing up. I've seen that work for others. Blessings and love. And I think that there's a lot of benefit. Obviously, charcoal or biochar, if you want to refer to it in that way, it's used for a lot of different things. Not only improving the quality of your soil, but it's used for, soil remediation, taking things in the soil that's not great and then locking them up so that you have it within the biochar and it can be removed. It can be held within that char, but it also works for, a lot of different things medicinally. And so, I appreciate the comment from that, but that is something that I also do is as I'll put, I'll put some biochar in the bedding from time to time. In generally speaking, in areas that don't have the chickens, walking around in it, because the particulates get airborne and it's not the best thing to be breathing, even for a chicken. And so I've got places where there's bedding where their manure goes. And I put it in there because it's not going to be really disturbed, but it's going to be down there. It's going to be something that has the ability to not only begin the inoculation process from all of that manure that's being dropped on it, but it's going to help to reduce the odor. So, hey, what's up, Skanes? You taking off? Night. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Appreciate it. Always good to see from you and hear from you. I've got another question here. Actually, it's a question. And I get this one fairly frequently. Honestly, a lot of people ask this question, so I thought I'd address it here again. I've addressed it before, but basically just asking, in the chicken yard, we have milk crates, and they're asking, what are the milk crates for? And I had somebody chime in on my behalf, says, look like they are just creating a boundary for the chips, perhaps. And I replied and I said, you are correct. They are used for a few things, but primarily they are an expensive movable barrier. So those are, I say inexpensive, but they truly are inexpensive because I got all of those for free. I didn't pay like anything for them. They were free. And so what I'm using them for, I got the idea. from Edible Acres. I saw where he got a bunch of milk crates and he was using them in his chicken yard for a variety of different things. And that's essentially what I use them for. I mean, I can put bones in there. I can put rocks in there to use them to hold things down as a weight. I can use them primarily. What I use them for is just having a barrier. If I want to segregate or isolate an area from older compost to new compost, I can use them for that. But what they're most used for is just around the perimeter of the yard. Because if you have chickens that are out in a yard like that, one of the things that they, for whatever reason, love to do is get right up next to the fence and dig right there. So along the perimeter, they're always digging. So they're right up there with their breast up against those milk crates, and that's where they start to excavate. And if those weren't there, they'd be right up next to the fence, and they would be digging underneath the fence. So it brings them back off of the fence by about a foot. And that's their primary use in the yard, but they hold many different uses for me. Firmament Farms in the house says, I read somewhere biochar added to clay soil can help the soil water movement by something like 300%. Has this been your experience? I can't honestly speak to, the percentage or whatever, but anytime you're adding something like that to clay soil, it's going to help with the breaking up of the clay, and it's going to allow water to penetrate and to absorb into clay soil much better. And so it depends on obviously the amount, that you're putting in. I don't put a high percentage when I'm doing it. It's nothing that it's even that I even know, like, oh, I'm putting 25% this, and no, I just add char to my compost. I add it directly to the chicken yard, and it does have an effect of water retention. I've done some experimenting on that, and it does retain water. That's one of its real great properties. So I can't really speak with any definitive answer to your question, like with the 300% thing. But it's gonna definitely help the aeration of the soil, the compactedness of the soil. So it's going to help to do all of those things, decompaction and water retention, but clay soil retains a lot of water anyhow. So, I don't know. Let's see. On the charcoal subject, my wife and I were talking about this very subject today. We have evolved eating food cooked over open fire. True. My opinion is that something that this civilized culture of sterilization has omitted from their diet that shouldn't have been omitted. Yeah. I don't know how harmful it is to ingest. I don't think that it's harmful really in small amounts at all. I think it's probably beneficial. Just from what I've been able to learn about it and read about it, where it's harmful is in the inhalation of it, the particulate matter. That's not really so great for you to be like breathing that stuff. So I tend to try to minimize my exposure when it's dry and it's airborne and all of that. I mean, it's best to do, crushing or what have you when there's water present. You can get it like as much, soaked in as you can and use water to your advantage for that. But it definitely has a lot of benefits, I think.
Doesn't it stay in the soil for forever?
Yeah, essentially, yeah, because what you've done is you've just created this blank carbon slate, that has nothing in it that's going to decompose. It's just like pure carbon. And so it will last for centuries, if not thousands of years. It's kind of hard to know, here's the thing. If it's more pure, if you really make good char, it's going to last a lot longer, because you can make char that's fairly impure. If I'm making char in a retort, it's going to be pretty clean, right? There's not going to be a lot of volatiles left in it. But when I'm making it like in a pit, there's more impurities left within it, because it's just not as clean of a process, even though it's valuable and it's, but there's going to be volatiles still left. And those volatiles are what help it decompose.
So is that because it's not in that canister that you put down in the large canister?
Yeah.
Helps it keep clean?
Essentially what you're doing is, like in a trench or a pit or something, you have like a vessel with an open top, and you need to be able to provide a lid to that top. And you do that by placing more material, more fuel on top of it, which helps to smother the fuel underneath, thereby choking out or starving the coals or the wood or whatever your feedstock is down below. That's essentially having gases driven off of it, but it's not being completely consumed. And so you're trying to, in essence, create this vessel with a trench. You've got a trench is a three-sided, vessel, and you're trying to provide that lid with the material you put on top. But it's just not going to be nearly as efficient as doing it in a closed vessel, like a retort, like I have. And obviously, if it's pure, it's going to last a lot longer, because there's, it's like if you put a piece of wood into that hasn't been turned into char, what's it going to do over time? It's going to decompose, right? Mm-hmm. Biological activity is going to take place. Microorganisms are going to consume that. It's going to off gas into the atmosphere in the form of CO2. And that's essentially what happens with any organic material. But if you remove the organics, if you remove the volatiles from it, it's basically, now it's just carbon. And that carbon is very stable. And so that carbon is going to last essentially indefinitely, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the deal. Okay.
So when we make the biochar soap, it is made from the enclosed. Mm-hmm. The biochar that we use is the purest.
Yeah,
that we have.
Make that out of white oak, that particular char. Firmament Farm says, biochar makes a great aggregate here. Thanks for answering. I use it in a number of ways. Always great to hear others' experience. Cheers. Yeah, well, thanks, man. Thanks to you for joining us tonight. And it's good to have you in the house. See, what else do I have here? I just answered the milk crate thing. I get a lot of questions on the milk crates. It's interesting to me, but people just don't know. Chicken yard. Yeah, this is from Sarah Perrine, and she was, watched one of the, chicken yard videos or what have you, and she says, this is great. Have you seen Edible Acres channel? They do something similar. I have a pasture poultry farm, but I started out using my chickens as composters on a small lot like you're doing. I bring in lots of free arborist chips. Now I reflect on this a lot, because although pasturing poultry, moving them across a grassy pasture daily, is wonderful for the soil and very healthy for the birds, I actually think what you're doing is more natural and more enjoyable for the birds. They are not open field birds. They prefer the forest. I'm trying to give my birds lots of pre-consumer waste to work through in addition to their pasture, because they just love it. And in a few months in the winter, they get to be up on the wood chips and shavings and out of the mud. So they get some forest floor. Looks like you are enjoying yourself. And my response was, I said, awesome. It sounds like your birds have a happy home too. Edible Acres is where I got my inspiration from for how I run my chicken yard. Great channel indeed. Thanks for watching and your comment. And yeah, I got the idea from watching what Sean was doing. And I've given him credit in some of my earlier videos talking about the inspiration that I gathered from watching what he had done. And, I'm taking what he has done and I am imparting what works best for me. I'm taking the parts that I like from what he has done, and then I'm creating my own thing that works in our environment. And I think that's what everybody's doing. There's a lot of this going on in everyday life. We see what others do, and then we get ideas and we say, hey, I'm going to incorporate that into my plan, or I'm going to try to replicate that. I'm going to try to validate what they're doing and see if it works for me. And, his channel's a good channel. I really enjoy watching what he's done on that particular channel. He's great. He's got a lot of great ideas, very original. Right. And, I appreciated what she had to say, but it's interesting that, people see the similarities there. Well, you should, because I derived a lot of the inspiration from what he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I guess. I don't hope to imitate. I just hope to, again, take what he's done and say, hey, can this work for me? Because I like what he's done.
And build upon it.
Yeah, of course. And that's what I've encouraged anybody who's watched any of my videos to do. Take what you like and say, hey, that's a good idea. Or, yeah, that doesn't work for me, or that's stupid, and you just go your own way. But essentially that's what's happening on YouTube. In all of it, I don't really think that there's any original information out there. It's just how it's being presented and by who it's being presented by. Most of what you see on the internet, most of it isn't original. It's not, hasn't been done already. It's just people are putting their spin on it. And so you have to find what works for you and what resonates for you, how it's being presented to you. It might reach you by the person who's presenting it in that way. So that's all that's going on, but I appreciated her comment. Speaking of imitation as a form of flattery or whatever, did I tell you that I got mistaken for freaking David Goggins again today?
No.
Guy, man. Yeah, I'm like going down the hall. I've got a couple of 55-pound weights and I'm holding them, and I'm doing a farmer's walk, and I come back, and before I enter back into the room, I can hear these dudes talking about me, and they're like, yeah, that dude looks like David Goggins. I'm just shaking my head because I get this all the time, and I don't particularly think I look like the dude or whatever, but I get that all the time. And it just cracks me up when that happens,
I say start signing autographs and, have them pay for them. Make it work for you.
Well, I don't know if it's going to work for me or whatever, but it's just funny when that happens. It's like, it happens all the time, and I said that, that's one of the reasons why I grew a beard, because I got tired of that. I'd go places and, people would be like looking at me or whatever. And I was like, fuck that. So I like grew a beard, and I never had that problem anymore, but I shaved my beard off, and people seem to think I'm David Goggins. I got like twice in the last, week at the gym, and I'll tell you a little funny story. I've never really told it here before, but the first time I ever got mistaken by this dude,
was by David Goggins.
No, I'm down at a race, right? And I was pacing a lady she was running the Badwater 135 down in Death Valley, and we're down in Death Valley. And I had this girl, she's probably like mid-20s. She comes up to me, and she's sitting there with she has her two girlfriends that are like there, and they're watching like, oh, what's going to happen here? Cause and she comes up to me, and she's like physically like so excited and shaking. She's like, oh, I'm so excited. You've been such a big inspiration. And, I've followed you, and, I've done this because of, and I'm just looking at her like, man, I'm like, I don't think I'm who you think I am. And she's like, are you David Goggins? And I'm like, I don't even know who David Goggins is. And I had never heard of the guy. And then her friends start just freaking busting up right there. They just like, ah! And she just turned beet red, and she's just like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, blah, blah, And so anyhow, we met and stuff. And and it was cool, you know, or whatever. But that was the first time I'd ever heard of that guy. And then ever since is like, you know, I guess he came out like an internet dude or whatever, you know, being Mr. You know, running ultra marathons and you know, I think he's like a Navy SEAL or something like that or whatever, but it's pretty crazy. Anywho.
I say claim it.
Yeah. Well, some guy also asked me if I was a Mexican today. Are you Mexican? I'm like, no, dude, I'm not a Mexican, but whatever, you know. Anywho, let me get to another question here. This is one that's probably people have. Says, do you have, this is from Anna Hill 7618, says, do you have an issue with rodents and wildlife in your compost area? I said, yes, we do. There's a lot of mice activity in the chicken yard at night, but they are very active all over outside at night. We fortunately have some feral cats that have adopted our farm and are doing their part to help at night, which has been pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got one that's posted up out there that I don't know. It's might be having kittens or something. I don't know what its deal is, but I see it out at night. Our security cameras pick it up at night. But I think most people would be very surprised. If you have a farm, you might be surprised if you go outside and look around at night and see what's crawling around. We got a lot of like critters, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of little rodents and things running around. We got voles and mice. I've never seen a rat here, thankfully.
Gophers.
Yeah, we got plenty of those. But yeah, so it's one of the things that is inherent with running a chicken yard.
Jackrabbits.
Oh yeah.
They're not necessarily a rodent,
No,
but
no, we got all kinds of wildlife, but it's just it's an inherent issue that you have. She tries to trap as many as she traps, both outside and inside the house. And we trap them outside so that they don't come inside. But, you've been a little bit lax on your trapping right now, right? You've got traps set, but you haven't been catching anything. When
our grandson is here, I pick the traps up because, curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid he's going to get snapped up.
Yeah, well, he'll learn.
Yeah, it's a rough way to learn.
Yeah.
I've snapped myself a time or two, and it hurts.
Right. Got another question here we'll hit. This one is, it's on the heating plate, and I did a video on that. It was an unboxing and kind of a review of this heating plate that I bought at Tractor Supply. And we are currently using it right now in the brooder, brooding up some chicks. I think it's fantastic. It works well. It's a lot safer than the light. Actually, I've got the light on out there right now, but that's getting ready to go off. And this person, Barry Sherry Brown 5160, says the heating plate is great. I wish there was a hood or anti-perch cover that could be purchased to use with this. Ideas. So I said, yeah, I just use an apple box to keep them from jumping on top of it. It doesn't get hot on the top, so I'm not concerned with it being a fire hazard. Yeah, it is completely safe to even put a box like that on top. There's, it's not hot at all to the touch. It's not going to pose a fire hazard by doing that. I've also got something that's just about the same size. It's like a little like crate, but it's a wire crate. And so you just need to put something on the top of it. Just get creative. I suppose if they sold something, it would be nice or whatever, but you could save yourself a few bucks and just get creative and put something on top of it that is going to prevent the chicks from jumping on it, because that is a problem with a plate like that. When they get a little bit more developed, they're going to be getting on top of that, shitting all over it and making a mess of it. So I just, either put like an apple box about that size, about like that. And it just sits on top, and then it's not an issue. Mm-hmm. But
they like it.
It's working well for us, if you wanted to know. And then I've got, I think, one more question that I wanted to address. And this is from Mary's Homestead Chronicles. This was based on a short that I put out not too long ago showing our lettuce production in our little low tunnel. And it says that's a heavy-duty low tunnel. Looks very well built from one carpenter to the next. I'm curious how you fasten the cattle panels to the boards. And, it's very simple construction, nothing too elaborate. And it's basically constructed with 2x4 that are oriented flat. So rather than being up on edge, they're flat, and they're essentially matching the footprint of the raised boxes. And the cattle panel are just nested on the inside of the 2x4 frame. So they're bent, and then the inside of the frame holds them in, from springing back out. And then I use those fence staples, the galvanized fence staples, to just nail on every other one or so. Very simple, very nothing high tech. And then I've got hinges, 3 hinges, door hinges on the back side that I've fashioned on. And then I come over the top with some 6 mil plastic. That 6 mil plastic lasts about 2 years because it does eventually take on the ultraviolet light. And, I imagine I could get some other stuff that's probably UV resistant, but it would be super expensive. And I just haven't gone that road. But that's what I'm using for our low tunnel. And we're flush in our greens right now, are we not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, I just picked a bunch.
Yeah, we're going to have some arugula and some good lettuce with our salad tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the best way to go. But anyhow, I think that's all I had for question and answer tonight. And let me get caught up just to make sure I'm not missing anybody here. The guy, Chris, says biochar can't get to the temperature of hot compost of the microbiology dies. Biochar can't get to the temperature of hot compost or the microbiology dies. I'm not sure what that means, man. So when you're hot composting, you want your compost to be 130 to 160. That is what is called the thermophilic range. 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 160 degrees Fahrenheit in that range. And you want it to be 130 so that it's going to be hot enough to kill any harmful pathogens and weed seeds, right? It needs to be at least 130 and up to 160. But beyond 160, it actually starts to kill the beneficials. It gets a little too hot, and you can essentially at some point wind up having a fire. It can get so hot. It'll dry itself out. But typically it doesn't get much higher than that thermophilic range if you monitor it with a temperature probe and then you turn it appropriately. I don't really do that much anymore. I did that when I first started out composting, just so I could learn and find out, what needs to happen in order for me to effectively turn a pile by hand and make good compost. I just do everything now in the chicken yard. I just throw it all in there and let the chickens do the rest. And I take my sweet time with it. When I get in the springtime, I'll start getting a lot more greenery in there, a lot more lawn clippings and things like that to add to all that carbon. And then I'll get some heat built up. But right now it's just kind of in a mesophilic stage where it's just kind of, taking its sweet time, and the chickens are just having a good time with it. And the worms are getting in there and they're doing what worms do. And we just keep adding to it. So,
Did you read Bill's?
What?
Or not Bill, but William Zackley.
What about Caitlyn Jenner?
Yeah.
Well, I would rather be mis-ID'd as him than Caitlyn Jenner. Oh yeah, from Goggins, I guess. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Bill says when we lived in Oregon, we had wharf rats, and my terriers, all 4 of them, do an excellent job of taking care of rodents. Yeah, I think that's what those dogs are built for So I kind of wanted to end things tonight with a couple of different things. Yeah, I think that three different things. One is a quote, and the other is a reminder, and the last is more or less a political observation. We haven't talked about politics much tonight, which has been great. Actually, politics just pisses people off, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But sometimes you just need to get in there and vent. But anyhow, I thought I'd leave you with this quote. And, I'm of the belief that people can live their lives however they want to live it. It's their life to live. And nobody should tell another how it is they live their life unless it's encroaching or infringing upon that of another, unwarranted. But I saw this quote and I thought, man, that kind of resonates with how I view living. And I liked it. So I thought I'd read it. And it says, don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. And I don't know. I just think that's something that's like worth thinking about and resonating. It resonates with me. What about you, Rebecca?
Yes, there's so many more experiences out there to experience.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that just kind of, they get in the groove. They're just in that mode of just same thing, same day, different, same shit, different day. And then pretty soon you've done that year after year after year for 75 times. And, you look back and you say, well, what the fuck did I do? Or was my time meaningful? And so that's why, I mentioned last time, my word of the year is bold, and it's to challenge myself and to go out and do bold things and to live life because there's so much worth living. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was written by a guy named Robin Sharma. Never heard of him.
Sounds like toilet paper.
Yeah, his name Robin Sharma, and so I had to look him up because I had no idea. He's a Canadian author who has written a number of books, and he's written a bunch of books, but that's his claim to fame. And that quote right there, apparently. And so here's, I guess that reminder I wanted to hit. This isn't exactly a cheery reminder, but it is something worth reminding ourselves of and never forgetting. And so never forget that our government, the United States government, demanded that you choose an untested medicine over your employment, over your education, over your right to freely assemble, or to even travel, or to engage in commerce, and even spend time with your family and friends. And, that's not very far removed from where we are today. That happened just not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yet people have the tendency to forget certain things like that. Like it just didn't happen. And there was never any reconciliation, never any recognition that, you know what, hey, we kind of fucked things up here. We're sorry. There was none of that. There was seriously people that lost their jobs, that had to choose their careers, that missed Thanksgiving and Christmas because they were scared to death. And then they were told that, hey, if you do this thing, in fact, not if you do this thing, we are demanding that you choose this thing in order to do and to live your life in the United States of America. So never forget that. We came off the trail. I've mentioned this once before, but it sticks with me to this day, that when we came off the trail, we were so excited to, have been completed our hike of the Pacific Crest Trail at that time. And we were all celebrating the people that we were with, and hey, let's go out to dinner. And so we okay, let's, meet here and we'll whatever. And so we went, this is in Seattle, and we walked to this restaurant, remember?
Not only one, we walked to several.
Right.
But after what happened at this one.
Yeah.
However, it happened at all of them.
They were demanding that we had this fucking card showing that we were vaccinated. And I'm like, I don't have that. I'm not vaccinated. And I'm not going to get that. Oh, you can't come in. Okay, that's fine. And so we just chose to go back to our motel room. And I don't know if we ordered room service or we ate at the hotel.
We went downstairs and
to
we
the
ate.
hotel.
Remember, there were some other folks that were
Right.
hiking with us. They ended up coming
Right.
and sharing a
Right.
table with us.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah. It's just that kind of like, let's not forget that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that, hey, let's not forget.
That was like a slap in the face because, I mean, we were out hiking and just not a care in the world, enjoying ourselves, enjoying the scenery. And when we came back into town, it was like a rat race. And they were insistent on us being being vaccinated.
Well, we had to have
having
papers.
And having proof.
Yeah, we had to have a card. Like, where's your card? You need, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing that. But anyhow, so let's not forget. It's a good time to remind ourselves of where we've come, and let's not go back there. Bill Warner says, it's easy to live Groundhog Day. Stretching ourselves should be a goal. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, it's everybody's life to live, your choice to do whatever. There's people who choose not to do that and are completely comfortable with however they want to live their life. And I'm not here to try to tell people what they should do, but I just want to live my life and have it be fulfilled and meaningful. And so
it's amazing how many wonderful experiences that you have just around you. You don't even have to travel to find new things to view or to do.
Right. London Pickering says, I was refused service in Palm Springs for not showing my papers. That's the biggest reason I packed up and moved to Oklahoma. I know that there's a lot of, West Coasters that have decided to move away from, states that have made things a lot more restrictive on the freedoms that we are supposed to enjoy. I just saw a report. I was going to talk about it maybe in another episode or whatever, but this is, again, California leading the way of people outbound migration. And it's a report that came through with the U-Haul, people renting U-Hauls. And they are absolutely dead last. They came in 50th, meaning people are leaving this state more than any other state. And the bottom 10 are all of the usual suspects. They're all the places where Kamala Harris won. It's interesting if you think about it. Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, all these places where people are fucking leaving, moving out of and going other places. And then the other ones are South Carolina, Oklahoma, actually Oklahoma was like places people were leaving, but like North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Idaho, Texas, Florida, all the usual suspects where people are moving to. And, people in this country aren't as stupid as the people who are supposed to be the smart people think they are. People are voting with their dollar. They're voting with their choices that they're making, not only at the ballot box in this last election, which was very surprising to me, but they're voting with where they want to live and where they want to raise their families and where they see themselves prospering. So it's pretty interesting. People are leaving places like California, the Golden State, right? Yeah. And the last thing that I wanted to leave you guys with is more or less a political observation. And I guess as we wrap up tonight's episode on January 6th, which is definitely a monumental day and one worth remembering, where Donald Trump, his victory was certified today by his opponent, Kamala Harris. Being the president of the Senate as vice president, she had to be the one that was certifying the results from this past election. I think that's an interesting thing. And I do think that that's to her political advantage, not to say, oh, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to show up and do my job. Because I think there was some discussion about that. I think it only would have made her look worse than she already does by her, like, hey, I'm not going to do that or whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's monumental for that. But also, as I was driving home, I happened to catch wind that the Prime Minister of Canada announced his resignation today. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about that's going to happen. And they were preparing, this isn't like a shocking news, but that happened today. And what struck me when I was listening to him was the similarity with what I heard Joe Biden say just a few months ago when he stepped aside so that Kamala Harris could run for president. I will say that I don't have much affection for either of those men, Biden or Trudeau, but somehow I have to give a shout out to little Justin, Governor Trudeau, for at least recognizing when he's no longer liked by the majority of the electorate and even the people in his own party, and has decided to do the right thing for the sake of his country and, Canadians. And I was thinking, as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, why hasn't our guy done that? Because it's the same scenario. Even his own party lost faith in his ability to do his job effectively. But yet nobody's suggesting, hey, you need to step down. We're just going to let you ride it out, Joe. And I think that's only because he's not really running anything any fucking how. He's just reading what he's been prepared. So,
and a poor job at that.
Yeah, but it's a weird deal, man. That's all. But I have to give props to Justin Trudeau tonight, even though I think the dude's kind of creepy. But I have to give.
For a second there, I thought you were talking about Gavin Newsom stepping down. Wouldn't that be just wonderful?
There's no way that's happening.
I know, that would be.
There's no way that's happening.
That would be great.
Yeah. But anywho, yeah, I want to thank you guys tonight for stopping in and letting us share some thoughts. Talked a lot about some things going on around the homestead, and I hope some of that is useful for you folks that tuned in. And I believe that we will be back next week. We don't have any plans on not being back, but you have any parting words, Rebecca? Anything you'd like to leave folks with?
I would just like to say the same thing as you, which is basically thank you for dropping in. We really appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us and listening to what it is that we have to say.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's stuff you can derive from that.
Yeah. Some value in what we've been able to impart here. And I can't believe we've talked about this for 2 hours now. That's kind of almost a record for us.
No, it's dinner time.
Boy, I'm telling you. What are we having?
Lasagna.
Yes.
Now this is the lasagna.
Mm-hmm.
We talked before about the flatbread on here. And so in place of the pasta, it is a flatbread.
Yeah.
And really the only change is the texture.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's going to be delicious. I'm pretty starving right now. So it's dark outside, guys. And we're going to call it another week, and we'll see you next week, and hope you join us.
Yes. Good night.
Yep.